this building's going to be an issue. I've managed a lot of them around here. This is where the problem occurs. This is what happens if you want to get ahead of the game. He didn't get ahead of the game, and now that unit's vacant. He will be paying money to take care of that issue.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 45 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
Hello and welcome to episode 22. If you are a new investor who is looking to buy rental property, or you're a current owner who is managing your own property and are looking for ways to improve your methods, I think you're going to get a lot out of my interview today with Tina and Wes Emert from Citywide Real Estate Services. So Citywide Real Estate Services offers everything from brokerage to property management to asset management, but they take a more success-based approach rather than a property-based approach. And I'm confident you'll understand what I mean by that once you listen to my interview with Tina and Wes, which is a very wide-ranging discussion with lots of great tips and information for rental property owners and real estate investors. Tina and Wes, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Brian. We appreciate it.
The two of you work together, your husband and wife. Tell me about the business that you run together.
So we're owners of Citywide Real Estate Services, and the business focuses on property management services, sales, investment sales, and project management or rehabbing type activities.
So if someone buys an investment property and they're looking to do some rehab on it, you guys provide those services?
Yeah, the business really is it can take you right from the origination point of purchasing a piece of real estate on through to rehabbing of the property, selling the property, or renting the property. So sort of a full service gamut approach to single family or multifamily residential property.
Now, your husband and wife, how do you guys split up what you do for the company?
Well, it's been a little bit of a journey figuring out each other's gifts, and that ties directly back to our marriage. That's part of it. But at the broader level, at a partnership level, you start looking at your counterpart and saying, okay, what type of abilities and gifts does this person have, and what kind of inherent abilities do I have in gifts? And then you sort of you create these permissions for the other person to take over when you need to leave off.
Mm-hmm. So give me some examples. What are your gifts, and how do you split up those gifts?
I handle more of the day-to-day management, tenants, owners, issues that come up on a daily basis. I'm more hands-on. Wes is more longer-term vision, handles a lot of the investments, the financials with the owners. I handle the day-to-day financials and the bookkeeping and the bank accounts. So it sounds like, Tina, you're the property manager. So you're dealing with the property management side. Yes, I deal with the management side, probably mostly the management side.
Okay, and then Wes, it sounds like you are working with the investors, the buyers, the sellers, and it's looking at the bigger picture of making sure that they're buying the right property, you're rehabbing it properly, and getting it to function the way it's supposed to function.
Yeah, a definite bigger picture approach to the investing side and really management side of things. I like to say that Tina's black and white, and I'm every shade of gray. So that dynamic works very well. The practicality of the business in certain arenas fall into Tina's area of influence, and the practicality of other areas are mine, and I own those, and she owns hers. And where they meet in the middle, we come together in an open forum and work those issues out.
Now, how is it as property managers and owners of Citywide Real Estate Services? How long have you been in business, and what drove you to go into this type of business?
We started Citywide in 2004. I was working at the Rental Property Owners Association at that time.
The RPOA?
Yeah, the RPOA.
Who sponsors this podcast?
Yes. And I was getting a lot of requests to do management, and I was doing management on the side, and it was too big. It was too much to do that. So I resigned from my position, and then I just volunteered there and stayed a member of the RPOA.
Okay, so that it began there, and because people were just coming to you and you must have had some knowledge that they appreciated, so they came to you and said, hey, will you manage my properties?
I actually worked for AMCO before I worked for RPOA.
And AMCO is?
They're a larger management company. They own a lot of the larger larger complexes in town.
Okay.
So I handled their bookkeeping and all their administrative work.
Okay.
So at that time, AMCO, I think, owned and operated Ramblewood, which is a 1,000-unit apartment complex in Wyoming, and they also managed a large multi-hundred-unit complex up on Alpine, North Grand Rapids area. And if I can brag on Tina a little bit, she's very detail-oriented, so she takes their delinquency rate from 11% regarding tenant rents being paid. And
delinquency rate, meaning those who are not paying their rents.
Yes.
Correct.
So it's over 10%, which is very
So
substantial.
10% of the income that should have been collected
was delinquent.
was not coming in.
Correct. And Tina, brought that down to less than 1%. And really just through organization and detail. And treating the tenant like an actual person and not just a line item on a spreadsheet. So she has this ability to work with people and owners and tenants alike and provide solutions in sometimes, yes, a rigid way, but and also other times in a very welcoming and let's see what we can do sort of attitude. Let's take what we have here and let's see what we can do. What can we do today to make this work and get you paying and set the schedule up and make sure this thing is happening.
Right.
I watched this over and over again as Citywide, started to grow. It grew very quickly. It went from 0 units up to 400 units in about an 18-month period of time.
That Citywide was managing for other people.
Yes. Mm-hmm. When it got going, when it first started back in 2004, it grew fast. And it was because of these types of things, keeping an open mind and engaging with the tenant really is what drove it first. At first, tenant engagement was really what drove the growth of the company over the 18-month period of time. So, I kind of forgot where we were going with all this, but...
Well, let me ask Tina. I mean, that's a pretty impressive improvement in the delinquency rate, like taking it from 10%. So if they're, let's say their income is supposed to be $10,000 a month, well, $1,000 of that was not coming in. What tips do you have? I'm sure there are listeners right now who are saying, yeah, I have that same problem. What tips do you have for those people who manage their own properties to improve that delinquency rate?
Well, what I do is I find out what their situation is because everybody's different. They're at a different spot, and some people just get in a spot and they just don't know what to do, so they panic.
You're talking about the tenant.
Yeah, the tenant. Mm-hmm. So I find out what what their issue is, what seems to be the problem that's getting them behind, and then if it takes, they're just not sure how to create a budget, or they've had such a change in their work schedule or a work loss that I just really try to sit down and find out what that is, and then we just walk through a solution. I will not set payment arrangements for a tenant. And I will not take a payment arrangement at that time unless they've reviewed their budget and can show me their budget, because I don't want them giving me something that's going to put us back in that position later. So does that mean sometimes you have to make the hard decision to say, you know what, you can't live here anymore because you can't afford the rent? I want to say not all the time. I mean, very few. Because when you give somebody the opportunity to really, they know that you care about them and they're going to sit down and look at their budget, they really do. It works.
So you just by spending some time and having that conversation, usually the money can come from somewhere. They can come up with the money. You just have to help them figure out where that money's going to come from.
I have very few evictions. I usually have an eviction if I take over a new property. Otherwise, maybe one a year. If they can't afford their property, or if there's a disagreement that they have to move because of the job transfer or something, they call me right away and they let me show. They keep the property in order and let me show it, and I can put somebody in there the day after they leave. Is a lot of times how it works out. I mean, I have one going right now that's happened that way. They're letting me in, and I've already got somebody that's going to take over the day after they move out. We've listed everything. Do things go wrong sometimes and people don't know how to hold up at their end? Yeah, but most of the time they do, especially when you have that relationship with them and, treat them the right way.
I think what inspired me about Tina's approach with tenants was that she empowered that she put the ball in their court, so to speak. So it was more of a open forum. It wasn't one of those things, well, you need to pay, we're going to send this notice of quit out and you need to pay. It was more of, okay, I understand the legal ramifications of mechanically giving somebody a demand to pay their rent, but she took the tact of, okay, what can you do today? Where can we start? Can you pay $20? And can we incrementally increase that over what period of time? So that, just getting down into the human aspect of a basic need, and we have a basic need of housing, so let's not forget that. Everybody's got to live someplace. And let's get into how do we make this work, yes, for the tenant and the investor, because we're not dealing with monopoly money here. It is real dollars, and an investor does need a return on investment. So with that those are overarching ideas, let's get to this solution quickly, but let's see if we can get what we have in place performing versus taking on additional cost of removing this tenant, flipping the apartment over, incurring those costs, and then getting a new tenant, which could be a 4-month process back in, depending on what market you're in. So the cheapest tenant you got is the one you got. Mm-hmm. So let's see what we can do inside these parameters. And if it does lead to an eviction, that's what it is. But if you can avoid that and you can bring some accountability, that tenant will become your biggest evangelist. That tenant will become very loyal to you at that point.
So do you have tenants that are very loyal to you and only rent from the properties that you manage?
Yeah, they've already said, if we ever get a notice you're not managing, we're leaving. And I'm like, okay, so. But I mean, it goes back to the investor though too. If you have a tenant that loves their home, because what I tell the owners when I talk to them is, you own this and it is your house, but this is their home, so we need to respect them as it's their home. We can't just, it's my house, so I'm going to walk in. We have to respect that it's their home. So, giving the investor, knowing that I'm going to get better rents and they're going to take care of this property, probably better than you are when you let them treat that as their home. I mean, no, they don't get to paint, they don't get to do any of all of that stuff. But we let them treat it as their home. And, if they're going to do something, then they'll call us if they want to paint a room or whatever. They'll get a swatch card, or they'll even pay the owner's painter to come in. Or you can usually solve a problem. The only thing you can't solve is if somebody doesn't want to help themselves, you can't help them, and it's an eviction, and you just part ways.
Right, and taking that consultative approach to management with an investor, because an investor will look at a piece of real estate from the position of brick and mortar and cash on cash and all these buzzwords and metrics that investors use, which are valid. But opening the eyes of the investor to, this human side of the tenant experience and consulting that and opening up that consultative dialogue with an investor is really where our business has really shifted and gained traction. So getting more integrated and invested and interested in investor outcomes and tenant outcomes has really brought proliferated the business into better profitability, managing smaller portfolios, yet having the ability to create more income inside of smaller portfolios, getting services to the level where I'm offering you as an investor additional services beyond just management. We talked about buying and selling it, managing it, rehabbing it, and there are other creative solutions out there if we can have time to get to those. But switching the paradigm, somewhere along the line, Tina and I realized that mechanically, yes, we were doing these things, writing contracts and leases and all these types of things, but somewhere along the line, our mind shifted into a different level. We shifted down into this consultative level. We became more fiduciary mindful for the investor and the tenant. So we just started getting deeper and deeper into the, I keep saying human element of it all, but really it's all about relationships. On the way over, Tina was saying that, it's all about relationships.
Well, you were telling me before we started the interview that you've identified some problems that you see through the whole chain of investors, first of all, buying properties and then, getting the right tenants and then managing those properties correctly. Can you talk about that? The kind of the overall approach that you take to to the whole process?
At the level of transaction, doing a typical transaction, what we first identified early on was there was this disconnect between real estate agent representing a investor and then handing that investor off to a property manager, i.e. us. So this disconnect was there because the agent was consumed in some cases, or has prioritized a commission, which is rightful. They're focused on a commission and getting paid. That's however,
they're not so much focused on making sure that the investor is buying the best property for them.
Yes, or really getting past the pro forma level of financials. They look at a pro forma that's created by a broker, a selling broker, and they say, oh, wow, this is 9%, 10%, 11% cash on cash, and this is great. And oh, by the way, this house only needs, 15 grand worth of work and it'll be great. When in reality, that property could need $30,000 or $40,000 worth of capital repair with, an ongoing capital repair budget, which is not on the pro forma. So it was just these either, these ignorant assumptions by an agent, or they're ignorant of it, they don't understand it, or they're purposefully not bringing these things into attention. Not all the time. I'm just saying that this is in the market. It's out there.
Give me some examples that you've seen of that type of thing happening.
We had a client. He was a military person, colonel, and he bought a multifamily property in Grand Rapids, and he wasn't guided along in the true financials of the property, and what the appreciation or cap rate or income could have been for this property, and the deferred maintenance. So this property landed in our lap through an agent, a local agent here, and Tina and I looked at each other and thought, wow, well, he's paying about $100,000 too much for the property based on these financials and this deferred maintenance. Well, we're one day prior to the close now, and we're not necessarily going to step in and say, hey, agent, Mr. Agent, you're selling this person a piece of real estate that isn't going to perform. We kind of got behind the whole cause and said, okay, maybe once we get this into management, we can really circle the wagons here, enforce some really efficient management, and make this work for the investor. Well, at the end of the day, it didn't work. The person he emptied out his Schwab account, literally, one of his retirement accounts, and all that money went into the property. At the end of the day, he gave it back to the bank and walked from Grand Rapids, literally, and he's not coming back. So, and that's a tough thing to take, because this person obviously wanted to be involved with real estate investing, and now he may not return because the fiduciary aspect of responsibility was not engaged.
Yeah, and that fiduciary aspect, when I look at those types of property, this was a 4-unit, you said?
No, this was a 16
property. Unit. A lot of times, even the realtors who are selling these properties don't necessarily understand how to value them, unless you're dealing with the bigger properties and the real commercial brokers who do, their pro formas are, you have to pay close attention to those as well, but at least they understand the proper valuation techniques. What I see is a lot of realtors who don't even understand what a cap rate is or cash on cash return, sometimes selling these multi-units. And then the investor who buys them, if they don't understand those concepts either, can run into the type of problem that you just mentioned.
For sure. It's at the institutional level that you're talking about with multifamily and commercial real estate, yes, it's much better there because there's a little bit more eyes wide open syndrome happening there. And that market consolidated back in the 90s, where mom and pops sort of gave way to these institutional investors coming in, and that multifamily market, 100 units and above, consolidated to professionals. And now we're seeing that happening now in the 1 to 4 unit realm in small multifamily, 24 to up to 100 units. The professionals are coming in. They're eyeballing these opportunities with single family residentials. You've got large hedge funds purchasing single family houses, building single family houses for rental now. So it behooves the agent and manager in today's market going forward to become very aware of these metrics that you're talking about, because that institutional investor is now, and more savvy investor is now looking at this multi-trillion dollar, market, the single family market across America, and thinking, wow, if I can make 6% on $1 trillion, that's a pretty good return. And where that kind of gets back to, with Tina, the practicality that Tina brings to the table is, Tina's down there pulling the street file, literally going down to the city and pulling out the street file, talking to her connections with the neighborhood associations, talking to the police, getting engaged at that grassroots level.
This is when you have an investor who's looking to buy something.
Yes.
What is a street file?
If you can, well, in the city of Grand Rapids, they keep a file on each property, whether it's registered. You have to register a property every year in the city, and then you also have to get it certified. So it will let you know if it's being certified, if there's any calls, complaints on it. You can just look at the whole history of the file.
Okay.
Right down at the city. You can go down and pull it.
Okay, so you do that for every property that you buy then, or that you have an investor buying?
Yeah, I mean, or I'll look at it if it's something that's come to us, like after they buy it, and we don't know about it, and I need to get some background of like what type of tenants or what I'm dealing with. I will make some calls to the neighborhood association,
Okay,
and
so
just get some connections to find out with who I'm dealing with.
with.
Am I dealing with the problem property in the neighborhood? So do I just have to go in and evict right away? Or was it more an owner issue, just not taking care of it? Because usually when you can talk to the neighborhood police or the neighborhood associations, they'll let you know, hey, we have an issue here.
Yeah. And,
There's
she,
drugs being sold at that house. So,
Yeah,
we've
they'll
been called
let
there
you
a number
know.
of times. Sure.
Yeah, she also uncovered a utilities configuration in a 4-unit that was just purchased recently, just by getting a hold of the utility company. And on the front end, as the agent and manager, these are the types of things that you need to understand as far as what is the configuration of the utilities. Is one tenant disproportionately paying electricity or gas because of the way the property was built back in the 50s?
How did you figure that out? Where did you get that information?
Well, I just have an owner that has bought some properties through some other people, and as I've been getting them, I've noticed that they didn't check into their utilities, and when I went to ask him about common bills, he didn't know what I was talking about. So he's never had a common area bill. I go, well, you own lots of multifamilies. We should be having some common area bills.
So one of his tenants is paying the common area bill.
So, yeah, the one we just went in, they're paying the lights, the laundry room, the boiler, the mechanical room is all on one unit. And he couldn't understand why you can keep this building full, but why do these tenants keep leaving? So I had a call last week, and I just said, well, they're paying a $200 electric bill, so they're not staying. So we need to raise rents, put this stuff around, and you need to pay we have to include all the utilities in here, and then just, adjust the rent accordingly, and then we'll be able to keep somebody. But they just kept wondering why they couldn't keep tenants in certain units. And I'm like, well, all your utilities on it. And because some of them are international, they don't understand, or some of them are just new investors, they just don't understand that if you own a multifamily, you should be having some common area bills and some
Common area bills being like lights in the hallways, the gas and the electric to run the washer and dryer in the basement, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and tenants don't go out and mow the lawn and trim the bushes for you, because some of them think, oh, it looks nice. They think that that's being done.
In the multifamily.
In the multifamilies. Just because they're new, you know what I mean? So they don't know, they just weren't educated. We tried to tell everybody, if I can give them the RPOI magazines, even though we're managing and they want to be hands-off, we do just say, let us give you some magazines to read and maybe just attend some classes so you know what we're talking about when the city comes in here, because they're shocked when their agent or nobody's told them that you have to be registered or certified. Most of them don't know you have to have that.
Oh, so you're working with some investors who don't even understand some of the basics, really. I mean, these are basics that you're talking about.
Right, and these are sometimes they're investors that have they just have never known, that this market has brought out a little bit different in people.
Which brings up a very good point, and this is something that I've always strongly believed, is if you want to be an investor in real estate, you need to get the education on what you just talked about, the city certification, who takes care of what bills. Because if you don't know those basic things, you're going to go out of business. But what my philosophy has always been is if you're looking to get into investing, align yourself with a very good management company. Find the type of management company that is managing the type of properties that you want to own, and start from there. A lot of people say, no, start with a broker, get a broker to help you find the properties. But I think the management company needs to come even before that. You're the ones who are going to say right from the start, well, you don't want to buy in this neighborhood, or this is a neighborhood you want to buy, but you're paying $100,000 more than you should. It's the manager and the management company who's going to be responsible for taking care of your investment that's going to help you from the very start.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we agree. But if you do buy in this neighborhood, then realize what comes along with the neighborhood in regard to demographics. So if you're going to buy a Class A property in a Class A neighborhood versus, a Class C property in a Class C neighborhood, there's reasons why you're going into that Class C neighborhood. Maybe it's cash flow. Maybe the investor needs cash flow, and they're not concerned so much with a 4% return on their investment. So there's reasons why that you go into those areas, and everybody's got to have a place to live anyway. So, but it's more of the approach. Let's go in with the eyes wide open, understanding. Yep, I'm going into this area for cash flow reasons. I still need it managed in a certain way, even though you may be dealing with a less unsavory individual and or elevated maintenance because of the tendencies of people in this demographic. So there's nothing wrong with investing in those areas. It's just a matter of let's not become disillusioned in what we know is happening in these areas. And as an owner and a manager, how are you going to be different from everybody else in that area and really optimize what you have in relation to, let's buy it right. Let's get that situated right away. But I do like what you said about starting with a manager. I was doing some inquiry in a different metro area as far as investing there, and I went right to a manager versus a broker. And the manager really laid it out for me and made it simple for me to understand that now's not the time to be buying in this metro. And he actually deterred me away from investing there, which I appreciated. Mm-hmm. And he's telling me, well, wait another year. This is what's happening today. Macro level, you don't want to be here.
Yeah, I think you'll get you have a better chance of getting the straight scoop from a property manager than you might from a broker.
And you really, when he was talking about whether you're doing a Class A or a Class C property, you really are going to manage them all the same. You know what I mean? There's high class problems. There's the middle. People don't change. They're all human and they act the same way. So you just need to know how to, with that Class A property, you need to know how to deal with that person too. Because if they hit a financial problem or if something drastic happens in their life, you're going to deal with the same issues that you do in any property. I mean, I've had it. You know what I mean? So and you have to deal with them. The system's the same way with them as it is with somebody in a Class C property.
Sure. Well, do you have an example of what you just said?
We had some people out in a nice area in a really nice home, and the investors just thought it was simple. This area is prime. Everybody wants the school district. I'm not going to have any problems. Well, it was a great family. They lived there for a couple years, and
except they never let the dog out.
No, that wasn't until the end. You know what I mean? They just had something drastic happen.
But it was the ultimate end. Was they kept this dog in this bedroom, and we're talking about a multiple six-figure income household here, where this dog is up in this room and it's destroying property.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of them. There's just been a couple. They're there and they've been there. Is that the one
you were talking about?
That wasn't the one I was talking about. But yeah, I was talking about somebody else's. But you know what I mean? Something drastic happened to one of the family members, and the parents just couldn't handle it. They broke down. They ended up getting a divorce, and it ended really bad.
And they were renting from this particular.
Yeah, and they were renting from there. And you could not have. I mean, they were great tenants for the first couple of years, but you could not foresee something like that happening or somebody reacting that way. And so we always tell everybody, yes, this is how it is now. That doesn't mean circumstances can't change for anybody. They can change up or down. Mm-hmm. We just have to make sure that we try to stay on top of it and have less damage and get them out and still work with them and get them out the right way, because if they leave angry, sometimes there's more damage done.
Yeah, so even if you have what you consider to be a perfectly operating turnkey house in a very nice neighborhood, you have to keep some reserves because disaster can and often will happen.
Yeah.
Yes, and it can, and you do what you can to mitigate that. And that does come down to efficiencies of management and being plugged into each property. There's a myth out there that bigger is better. A lot of managers define themselves by how many units do I have, and or like we said, how many sales do I have? But that shouldn't be the metric, really, for success. You really have to, from the business standpoint, I know what it takes to make my business profitable. And expanding a portfolio to 1,000, 10,000 units is going to take X infrastructure. You can become just as profitable at a smaller level, and this is for investors to think about too. So you can get rid of maintenance costs almost completely. And I've done this with single family 1 to 4 unit and multifamily properties. You can reduce that maintenance cost dramatically by curing 100% of the deferred maintenance right out of the gate. And they don't net, and then so that's gonna affect my ultimate financing, because if I'm operating at a higher net operating income, I'm valuing my property now. A bank is valuing my property at a higher rate due to a net operating income number, because I've reduced vacancy or delinquency from 10% down to 1%, or I've reduced vacancy from 24% down to 16%. 4% on $1 million starts to add up at the level of cap rate and valuing a piece of property. So bigger isn't always better. If you're a manager or an investor, if you can squeeze $200 out of a single family residential house versus $100, well, it's just you're managing one house now instead of two. And
what you're talking about is asset management. So as an investor, even if you have a management company, you have to manage your asset and make sure it's performing the right way. And what it sounds like you offer as part of your services is that as well, asset management. You're looking at the delinquency.
It's that reality. It's me being honest enough to tell you, hey, the roof is shot, and this walking right out of the gate, getting out of the car. Hey, look at this roof. It's gone. I'm not concealing that. I'm telling you right out of the gate.
Right.
I'm not waiting for the inspection report, because when the inspection report comes back, you as a buyer are looking at me saying, why didn't you tell me this as the professional? So I don't want an inspection. I want to validate what an inspection report is saying. I don't want to become aware of it. At that point.
So talk about that process, because you kind of started with the broker or the realtor who's selling the property may not really understand or make the buyer aware of what they're buying. What's the next step in that process where you guys come in? I mean, as managers, if you're working with a buyer from the start, what is your input into their purchasing process?
I go to the inspections. I go to all of my clients' inspections, no matter who they are. And then if they're buying, or if we're managing, or if they're just selling a property or buying a property, I go to every inspection. If they're working with another realtor and they're going to be using us to manage, I go to that. If they allow me to, I go to that inspection. So then that way I can uncover anything that I see that might flag the city, or, so they know. I will pull the street file for them at that time if their agent hasn't. And then, and their agent knows I'm doing all of this stuff. So they're not going to be surprised, when I'm at the inspection, because I walk right, sometimes I'm pointing stuff out to the inspector too, because they're human. I mean, they're one person and they do have a checklist and they do a great job. But, if they start talking, or if a tenant comes in, because they're usually there, they might miss something, or if I see something that's of a concern, I'll say, hey, can you pay, special attention to this area.
Right. This is happening right now in a transaction. Tina's pointing these things out, and which caused the buyer to go back in and renegotiate a $5,000 reduction in the purchase price in a transaction that's happening today, which would have never happened if...
They got more than that, but they just got it last night.
I'm just using that.
Right.
But so this is realistic now. It's a real thing happening, because a manager decided to show up and do a fiduciary responsibility for a client she doesn't even have yet, for a realtor that has no real allegiance to us. We just want to see this investor who may be a client succeed. We want to see that investor succeed regardless of whether or not he comes into Citywide or whether he goes to someplace else or manages himself. Mm-hmm. If he succeeds and brings up the neighborhood, then I succeed as an investor proportionately. So it's just, doing diligence at the human level. Let's get out of this mindset of, buyer beware and, all this other kind of buzzword ideology that's out there that really is self-preserving. It's a self-preservation mechanism for me to say buyer beware.
Sure.
As an agent. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, or as a property management company
Right.
to just say, well, I'll manage the property, whatever, but I'm not going to tell you what condition it's going to be in when I get it.
I mean, there are those people that will not listen to their agent. I mean, I've took on clients to where they haven't listened to their agent, and their agent will call me and say, I told them not to buy this. I told them I would not be able to sell it later for this. But I know you'll do the best. You know what I mean? So they tell me too, So there are the people that are not going to listen because they've watched TV shows or they've done whatever
Well,
and not their
they've learned
research.
so much from HGTV.
Yeah.
What don't you know
Flip
after you watch HGTV?
Yeah. So, I mean, they're out there, and then that's when they have to learn the hard way a little bit. You know what I mean? And
Which is great because
Most of them will
that
come
education comes as it comes. Yeah, that's a good way to learn.
Well, going back to the inspection, I'd imagine, Tina, you show up and you will see things that you just know from experience. This is going to be a problem because I've had experience with this problem before. With a home inspector, they may not have that experience. They've got their checklist and they've got their classes, but they don't have the experience. So do you have any examples of noticing things?
Flooding. Water in apartments, lower units, yeah.
Really?
I probably get it on a lot of fourplexes. A lot of the times the lower units flood. And so when I walk in, I'm like, has this been sealed? Are there any cracks? Because I'll get properties with sub pumps or what, and they'll say it's dry on the seller's disclosure or whatever. And I can just tell, I just know where to look to see if there's been water coming in there because most of the time that's the issue. So, and I actually have one of those going right now too, where
Oh, really?
I told them, this building's going to be an issue. You know what I mean? I've managed a lot of them around here. This is where the problem occurs. This is what happens if you want to get ahead of the game. He didn't get ahead of the game, and now that unit's vacant. And he will be paying money to take care of that issue because water's coming in that lower unit.
Right. And that's something where a home inspector, they would look and say, well, it's not wet, so it's
Right.
not a problem, right?
And you wouldn't know. And I did learn the hard way because at one time, one of my complexes that I got were a lot of 4 units. And they kept getting wet. And, so I just took, I got down, I started researching, I started talking to people. And then we found out what we could do to take care of the issue and to solve it instead of cleaning up the water every time it rains. Because I remember telling him, it's supposed to rain tomorrow. So I wouldn't sleep all night because I felt so bad for the tenants because I knew where the water was going to come in, but we hadn't figured out how to resolve
What was causing why is this a 4-unit issue?
a lot of
What's
times if
causing
they're
that?
built in the side of a hill, they, what I have just noticed on probably over a dozen buildings is that at the window, it cracks down from the side. And so the water will come down into the corner there and go underneath. So then it leaks on that side of the building.
These garden level buildings are susceptible to it. But you as a new investor have no idea that these garden level units are susceptible to cracks in the foundation. And they may not have used the best form of concrete when they built the property because they want to build it a little bit cheaper. So we know that going in, you will have a problem. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this thing cracks. We need to have the budget to fix it. And it's about $2,000 per crack.
Wow. So what is the remedy? I mean, what do you do?
Well, I mean, to keep the water away from it as much as you can. So we make sure, their gutters are up, that we're cleaning gutters, that we make sure that they're not putting lots of plants around the building in the area and having the sprinkler system run. In one of our complexes, we said the water drains down because these are on a hill. So we want the sprinkler system off. Well, lawn maintenance didn't want to turn it off because of the grass. I said, well, just try what I'm going to tell you in a minute, because I know there's clay in certain areas. So if you can turn it off, but if it starts to get brown or you start to not like it, we'll turn it back on. Well, we were able to save the owner money on lawn sprinkling because we didn't have to turn it on, because the water did run down and hit the certain clay areas, which kept the grass green, and it kept all of the water from going into these buildings. And so we were able to put one sub pump in the middle of the first 3, and it saved them. You know what I mean? And just dug it up and put some stone around it. So we actually have no water coming into any of the buildings anymore.
Yeah, that problem's been cured. That was a property that had 5 fourplexes on it and another multifamily structure. But each of these fourplexes had the issue. And every fourplex out there built in the 50s, 60s, whatever, in Grand Rapids, or are gonna deal with that problem. It's just a reality, and the gutters are definitely helping out at a dramatic level, and also channeling water. Put a little bit of drainage in, just make that water move faster. That's all you got to do. It's cost preventative on the front end versus having to go back in and fix something that's major. I'll give you an example of how this cost benefit works. So we had this single family house in Grand Rapids where we had a water supply issue. The owner didn't want to spend any money. So this supply line was leaking over time, and it kept leaking, and pretty soon the ceiling caved in, and which costed the owner $2,500. Well, we could have fixed it for about $65, getting a plumber over there, replacing a supply line.
Really?
So think about that. A little part that on the front end of cost prevention could have saved you on the back end these thousands of dollars by having a maintenance program put into place. Maintenance schedule put into place.
Wow. Yeah, that's yeah. It's sometimes you try to save money by just letting things go, but I see that all the time when I look at properties that are for sale. Owners who were cheap in the way that they maintained them, and then things went wrong and they couldn't afford the repairs that were necessary.
You can tell that from the management side when you're going in and looking at them. A lot of times you can tell if it's an owner issue or a tenant issue. And on some of them that I've went to inspections on, I just said, I don't know the tenants, but from what I could see, it looked like more of an owner issue with the house. Like you said, they were waiting.
What would be signs of an owner issue?
She had a shower. I mean, I knew it was a shower valve. I've seen enough shower valves, leaking and go bad to where he didn't think it was a big deal because it's a leak in the it's going in the bathtub. It's not going anywhere else. Well, no, it's not. It's going in the basement and the ceiling in this back room. So now we have ants and we have mice. You know what I mean? There's other problems. So your water bill is going to go down. So what it would cost you to cut a hole in here to replace this, you're going to spend a couple $100s, but you're going to save that on your water bill. And then now you have to have a pest control company come in here.
Yeah.
For ants and for mice, and I could tell it was an owner issue because the it ended up going back underneath. So the subfloor was starting to get soft so now it's going to need a whole new bathroom because of a shower valve that could have been taken care of,
for a couple $100.
For a couple $100. And now we have pest control and a whole new bathroom.
Yeah. And this is really big picture coming back to conformity, dealing with investors head on, giving them the reality, and then testing them and saying, are you going to be willing to do this? Are you going to be willing to give up some of your cash flow annually to institute a capital repair account if you can't solve these problems on the front end? If we can't resolve everything on the front end, if we can do everything except put a new roof on today, okay, great. But let's get this capital repair account set up at 7% of rents. Therefore, within 36 months, we have a roof paid for. Are you willing to do that? Absolutely. Or absolutely not. Well, then if it's absolutely not, then we're not on page with you. You need to go talk to a different management company.
All right. So you will turn away
sure.
business.
Sure. Well, we may bring that in initially and work with that investor, but if the philosophies aren't coinciding, you're wasting time and money. We became profitable when we shrunk our portfolio and added additional services, investor services and tenant services into our mix versus going after more units. and creating infrastructure and cost at the management level.
Right. Well, it's the 80-20 rule. If you get rid of 80%, or what is it, 20% of the owners and the properties for causing 80% of your problems, well, if you get rid of that 20%,
you can go on vacation.
The business runs itself, doesn't it? Yeah.
You end up paying money to manage them. You know what I mean? Because if they want to call you every day, and there's a time and a place for everything, you know what I mean? But if they want to, sometimes I'll tell them, you need an assistant. You don't need, and we have got rid of people, where I've said, you know what, I want you to think about this. You don't need a property manager. You need a personal assistant, because I'm not your personal assistant, for you to call and say, I want you to do this right now. You might want to look at hiring a personal assistant to be cheaper for you.
Exactly.
Because I'm not going to do this. And if I do, I'm going to be charging you more because I'm not your assistant. I'm a property manager.
What might one of those requests be?
Gosh,
well,
I've
it
had
happens
owners.
every month with the financial statements. Invariably, it happens every month. So, and month after month for the same issue. When's it coming? When's it going to be here? What's this line item? Why are you spending this much money? It's all these little details that have already been explained, that have been told on the front end of things. And we get it. When you're an investor and you've got real money invested into a piece of real estate, you've taken part of your life, basically, and put it into this piece of real estate. So we're mindful of that. However, you still have to temper that with, rational thinking and temperance of your emotions. And, let's become an investor then. Let us show you how to become an investor so that you're not, in one example, this person drives by a property and, we're living in Michigan, so there's snow on the ground, and he calls the office and says, there's snow in the driveway. These tenants must be bad. They're going to ruin my property. And we're thinking, can you give the snowplow person some time to get over there? But he drew all these assumptions about the tenant and our company based on snow being in the driveway.
It was 10 o'clock in the morning.
Scheduled to be cleared. But yeah, he's calling our phone and taking up time and resource. And those things, that's a very simple example, and they get more complicated as you go up the spectrum with more valuable properties, or when more money's on the line, the problems get more complex.
Sure. Well, what is an ideal investor owner that you would work with? I mean, what's the ideal type?
We work with it's pretty broad who we work with. And I'll work with anybody with any income level. But what I'll do is, like he says, with the financials, when they come each month, I already know, when you get a tenant. If you're an investor, when you get a tenant that they're just not going to move in. That you're going to spend probably 30 to 90 days getting to know them, find out what their quirks are, issues, to work out the bugs, to find out, hey, this is really going to work long term, or they're probably going to be gone at the end of the year lease. It's the same thing with an owner. During the first few months, I'm going to have to explain these financials to an extent to them. Explain, why are you removing trash? Well, I'm removing trash because somebody dumped it in the back of your property. Well, I don't want to pay X many of dollars. It's cheaper to let the city take it. No, this is the city process. So then you have to walk them through the city process and how much the city charges to take it out. So it's the same process with an owner. And as long as they're getting it and they're understanding and they're moving forward, because they want to succeed and they're educating themselves, then I'll hang on to that person for a couple of years because they're trying and they're doing the best that they can do. It's the one that wants to just try to beat you down to say, well, I basically want you to do nothing on this property, and I want you just to collect my rent and just take all these harassing phone calls when I'm not doing repairs. Those are the ones that I won't take, and that I just won't deal with, and that I'll just cut off real quick if I see that starting to happen. Because
they want you to take the fire from the tenants for not taking care of the property,
right?
And they want you to make sure that you collect the rent, but they don't really want to put any of that back.
Then I'll be the blame when the city writes them up.
You can get their money and take the blame.
Yeah, and then I'll be the blame to say, So I understand why the city now sends notices to the owner, because that was happening a lot. Owners just say, well, my property management's not doing it, and everybody manages differently. So some people their personalities don't work right. You know what I mean? And that's just something, you could have a good client, but just the way you guys communicate just may not work. So you refer them over to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, talk about, let's continue with the process here, because you kind of start with the buying of the real estate and the investment, and then you move into the management, but there's more to it. Can you
Yeah, it's
continue?
recognizing, staying with a single-family house example, there's a time to buy it and a time to sell it if you want to. So during a normal market cycle, you would say, okay, the door is open now for you to sell this property. Would you like to sell it? And us being real estate agents, we have our hand on the pulse of what the market is doing. You know, and today, and as we talk today, we're approaching a bubble sort of esque situation in single-family residential housing. So we know that today could be a time to sell if you're a investor who owns property, a single-family house, because the market has elevated dramatically. That's part of the process, you know, and we're aware of that. So we'll make that phone call to you and open that opportunity up to you and say, based on over time, we've watched your financials, you're cash flowing at X. However, you could take a windfall of these thousands of dollars if you sold today. Talk that over with your financial people and see if this is something that you would like to take advantage of today.
Right. So you're looking at the strategic picture as well.
Sure.
Now you're a realtor as well, right?
Yes.
So if they do sell, they would hopefully sell through you, because otherwise it seems like you're telling your customers, well, maybe you should sell. And
Some don't, because we do
we'll
manage.
just say goodbye.
We have that disposition. See, we're a little, that's a little bit of a fault. We don't want to, as a professional, you're a professional and I'm a professional. You're a realtor and so am I. If you did...
Well, I'm not a realtor.
Well, I'm just saying this
Mm-hmm.
in, you know...
If you've used a realtor, if somebody's used a realtor, I keep a note in the file and they're referred back to that realtor. I don't try to gain that business to sell that. It just, to me, I mean, it's not right. It's not ethical. And if I want people in the community to trust me, I just need to do what's right. You know, it's ultimately their decision. And so I'll let them make that decision. But I still, even if I'm not their realtor, you know, then I'm going to still give them that information. Well, I just did it last week. We gave the comps, we gave all the financials and just said, hey, this tenant needs to leave for emergency situation. Do you want me to put somebody in? Or I know you've talked about selling. We gave him the financials, talk this over with your financial people. He just said, nope. He said, it's better for me to hang on to do this, and gave us his plan. But it was going back to the realtor that sold him the property.
Wow. So, I mean, that's a good example of how you're looking out for your clients and your customers' best interest, because you're putting their interest above yours. If you're saying, hey, go sell this, by the way, go sell it with a different realtor.
Right.
And, you know, that
just
income
because-
that you would get from that property
Right.
is
The
no
same
longer
thing
there.
if they want a property that Wes is looking at buying himself, if a client wants it, it goes to them before it goes to us.
Yeah,
It's just the right thing to do.
I put the realtor hat on, and yes, this is a great investment, and I might purchase this. This was the paradigm that was happening during the foreclosure crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying, yep, I could buy this and do this and myself, yet here I am standing with my client. I'm going to defer to my client. But, you know, just because you advise a client to sell something that you have under management doesn't mean that person's out of the game. They're going to go back in and buy later, or they're going to become your JV partner, or you're going to affiliate yourself with that
So
person.
you're building relationships. It's not so
Yes.
much about a particular property
No.
Right.
and the
It's-
income you're making from
You're
that
definitely
property. You're building
elevating
a
up
relationship.
to a higher level, looking at a 10-year picture. You know this person is an investor. He's not going away. So he's going to appreciate that windfall. Maybe he needs it. Maybe he needs it and takes it. Maybe he doesn't need it and just lets the property stay under management. But appreciates that you at least brought that to light. And now that trust, now we're getting into the third level of wealth management. You know, we're starting with consulting. We click down into a fiduciary. Now we're clicking down into somebody who is becoming a partner in other deals maybe with you, because that level of trust is really being built. And now you're welcoming that person into maybe a deal that you're doing, and you're offering him him or her or them an ownership stake in a piece of property that's going to proliferate, you know, for them and do well for us, because we're going to manage this property. So it's getting more integrated into someone's success is really the best model, versus looking at a superficial sales number or quota that I got to meet, which is great. Let's set goals, okay? There's nothing wrong with setting and meeting my goals. But just don't do it at the expense of trust, client trust. And Like I said, we're not playing with monopoly money. This person has worked maybe his whole career, and now he has this nest egg, and he needs to invest. You got to make a sale, great, make a sale, but don't use this person as your mechanism to get a sale.
Right. So it's a success-based model that you have, as opposed to just a property-based model.
Sure. Ultimately, it boils. That's the bedrock. It boils down to that level. Whether you are a one-off investor that just comes in and goes, I'm not looking, and you've got $10,000, or you're a big mega investment group with $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, or whatever you've got. I'm talking to you the same exact way in that meeting. Period. There's no disparity between what I'm advising you to do or not do with your money.
Well, let's back up a little bit to the rehab phase. So if you do take on a property and it does need some substantial upgrades or rehab, is that a service that you provide as well?
Yeah, we're very vertical, over 15 years of management with area contractors. 1099 relationships rule the day for Citywide. We have had the model where we've had them staff and employees and this kind of thing, but just the general dynamic of the way business is happening today, it's more of a 1099 economy, and you're sifting through and finding those contractors and service providers that are performers, and you're shucking oysters, right? So you're getting rid of this guy because his work is substandard, or he can only do this part, and then you're finding the guy that can do the level of quality and consistency that you need. So it's just like anything else. With those relationships that we've built over time, we've prioritized that. So I'm always looking somewhere on Thumbtack or Craigslist or wherever. I'm always talking to new guys. Maybe I see them driving down the road, and I grab their number off the side of their truck, and I just call them and talk to them and open that dialogue, watch them perform, shuck the oyster. Yep, I like this one. I don't like that one. He's doing well or not. So we're always, purging that ability, and then putting those capabilities into place at a high level of efficiency. So I'll give you an example. A lot of times, as an investor might come in and they're going to buy a multifamily complex, okay, 200 units. They bring in a resident manager and staff. Do you really need to bring that staff level? Do you need to add that infrastructure and expense on that property? Or can you really operate at a higher level of efficiency and offer, maybe get a maintenance coordinator, and then 1099 everything out to a very efficient handyman service, versus bringing a guy on at 36 grand and paying his taxes and insurance and all this other kind of stuff and vacation. Mm-hmm. And, he's wasting 4 hours a day, not by his own fault. It's just the way it is. He's doing nothing today, but he's getting paid this salary. So the world is turning that way. The economy is moving toward a 1099 mentality. We've embraced that idea, and bringing efficiencies with technology. Everything in our business is done over text and email, dispatching work orders, receiving invoices. It's just this different dynamic today. It's faster. Everything is moving a little bit faster.
Yeah, and plus it goes back to when you're dealing with people, when you're dealing with contractors. Some people want to have one contractor come in and do everything. Well, that's not always in the best interest, because they struggle in some areas or they're not really good in some areas. So I've watched Wes talk to contractors to say, you know what, you are amazing at laying this tile or amazing at doing this trim. So you know what, when we do these rehabs, I'm going to have you just come in and do this portion. Your weakness is this area, but this is his strength. So he puts them in on the project of where their strengths are, and they really all work together. They got to know each other a little bit, and they'll actually say, hey, you know what, I see this happening, you should call so-and-so, because I'm not going to be able to do the job he can do. So they're actually referring each other back and forth to say, hey, Wes, you need to call this guy, because he'll do a better job at it than I am, because we're watching them now, because they've done so much together. They have each other's back a little bit to say he can do a better job.
Right. So your contractors are still working together as a team and understand how each operates and what they're best at.
They'll go to a property and just say, if I call a contractor out, or a plumbing contractor or whatever, they know our handyman. They'll just say, hey, he can do this. He's fully capable of it. Have him call me and I'll tell him exactly what's going on. And so, because they're like, you're going to save money.
And this is a
using
commercial
team than me.
plumber.
These are commercial plumbers and commercial, HVAC guys that will tell me. My heating and cooling guy will do the same. They'll say, because they know our handyman, they'll say he can do this, have him do this, this, and this. It's going to save you money. So our contractors are telling us what our handyman, could do, and that they don't need a permit. So they just all work together.
Yeah, so the commercial
Right.
HVAC or plumbing guy understands that he can't make money at the handyman level, so why should he even engage there? So he's telling us, hey, look, go get your handyman and bring him in. So it's understanding your business model and where you're going to make money, keep profitability, and letting go of those things that you don't need to hold on to, and picking up those things, those core things, and really optimizing that ability. We've got a great handyman right now, a couple of them. One in particular, I hear him telling me all the time, I just don't feel comfortable doing that, right up front. That's great. Mm-hmm. So he understands where he needs to be to make money and keep his business running and keep his house in order. So,
and not ruin the property or get the tenant upset because we're back there because he's not comfortable with it and he knows he can't do the right job. Mm-hmm. So he'll just tell us up front.
Right, but those efficiencies are there. Those efficiencies doing a rehab are definitely there. We're getting things done on time, on budget for the flips, and or just repositioning a piece of real estate and making it perform. We're talking to an investor. We're telling the investor, if you do this level of finish, you're going to get this level of rent. If you do this level of finish, you'll get this level of rent in this location, single family or multifamily property. You do need to realize the cap. Where is this demographic / geography going to cap? What's the upper end, and what are the tenants' demands at the upper end, the middle end, and the lower end? Okay, so let's get some diversity in this tenant mix, and let's create this outcome based on these repairs at the front, this capital repair budget during the process, and then the ultimate disposition or refinance into something longer term. So it's really just looking property by property, investor by investor, because two investors on the same property will have completely different objectives, and it's really just decompartmentalizing all that and then figuring out what the end result is. But yeah, the efficiencies are there for us today because of the sort of the blood, sweat, and tears of 15 years of management brings about, and weathering, a couple market cycles along the way.
What are some of the other differences in your management style and your philosophy?
Working with my wife has been wonderful. We're always in the car together,
And you still get along.
Yeah, I've got a partner that will tell me the truth.
Who drives?
She drives.
I drive.
I'm always on the phone.
I get car sick, so I drive, so I get more work done than I can dictate to him, or I'll get my phone calls done.
Right. I just think you've got there's transparency there. So if I have a partner in my business that is not transparent, or we have an adverse situation happening, ultimately that's going to affect you as an investor, my client. You're going to have some level of, collateral damage because of my unrest inside of my own business. So as a business owner, you really have to look inside your core group and say, okay, what's going on here? Are we completely cohesive, or is there something often skeleton in a closet somewhere that we got to take care of and, open that up? And I really feel like that just sets a really easy tone for our business. Like I said, we're going to come into a meeting with a guy that's got 10 grand or a guy that's got $1 million in the same exact way. There's no disparity. I'm not out to impress you because you have deep, deep pockets. Now, I understand that. I understand who you are, and your value system is going to be different and what you're looking for. I understand that. However, you're going to get the same exact treatment as this other person. So I feel like that really sets us apart. We don't prioritize commissions over people. We don't prioritize management fees over people. So I think from that regard, our business has been around, and it's been blessed, and it's grown, and it's been able to, when all these real estate agents were, getting out of the market during the foreclosure crisis, our business was growing. When nobody could sell their property at top dollar when the market was crashing at 4% per month, we were still selling at the top of the market. Why? Because our product was excellent. So we're always putting that barometer of excellence at the top. And then from that perspective, anything that filters down from that really is good. So we're not concealing anything. I don't know if we're doing anything inherently different. I mean, how many different ways can you cut up a lease? I guess it's the same mechanical process.
When you just said lease, I'm just like, I honestly don't want to say it's a waste of time, but when there's people out there that can do something that are good at it, why try to reinvent it? RPOA has great forms. Mm-hmm. Why would I want to reinvent those forms and use other forms? I'm part of RPOA and IRM. They have great forms. Why would I reinvent those? I have an accountant and an attorney on retainer. Why would I go against to say, but I want to do this? You know what I mean? They're the professionals. They're educated in the area. I picked them to be part of my team. If I didn't trust them or think they weren't going to give me the right forms, then they shouldn't be part of my team. So we let everybody, we just pick a good team. We work with them and use what they have to bring to the table instead of reinventing something that you could be spending other time on.
well, let's do an organic plug for the RPOA here, because you used to work for the RPOA and you use their forms. What else can you say about the RPOA that has been helpful to you?
I think their education's great. I think that whether you are not even investing and are you thinking about it, you could go. I mean, you would learn, and I think as a broker or a seasoned investor, you should go, because the classes are catered to where, when they're talking to people, they're dealing with what's happening now. Their classes are written, and it's not going to be the same 2 years ago as it is today. It's going up. It's like, okay, if there's something going on in the city of Grand Rapids or the city of Wyoming or in the state, they're dealing with that issue now in those classes. Mm-hmm. So you're kept up to date on everything through all of their education. I've always believed in all of their education and still go to their education and always push everybody to go to their education.
Yeah, so if you're in West Michigan or Michigan, that's the Rental Property Association of West Michigan, RPOA, RPOAonline.org. Mm-hmm. Since you brought it up, I don't always plug it, but
no, I mean, and the forms are great. I mean, why buy a packet of forms that you're not familiar with? They have an attorney that goes through the forms. A lot of your agencies, a lot of your judges are familiar with those forms, so they want to see those forms. So why try that? And don't go alter it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They have all the addendums if you need to use or not. You can do a PDF or you can print it off, or if you need a pad, you can go in there and buy it from them. So they have all the options there for the forms.
Yeah, if you're standing in front of a judge and you're doing an eviction and he knows he's seen the form literally 10,000 times, that process goes a lot faster than him trying to wade through your document and trying to figure out what the intricacies of what
you... He can make an instant judgment because he sees the RPOA form and he recognizes it. He knows you know what you're doing.
Right. And the girls are great for questions. You know what I mean? They can prepare you to go into court. They can prepare you, and they can walk you through everything. So, I mean, like I say, if you're even thinking about investing, it would probably be good just to go attend it, to go talk to people, and you may decide it's not for you, and that's okay. But at least you did what a lot of people didn't, and you educated yourself and said, you know what, this isn't for me.
Let's talk about the market as it is today, because I know you have a perspective on the prices that are being paid, values that people are coming up with now. What's your take on that?
We're seeing a lot of new dynamics, I guess, and changing dynamics. We had a meeting with a title officer manager recently telling us that that closings are falling, properties are falling out of closings at a rate of 10% higher than last year at the same exact time. So they're getting to the closing table, but instead of 24% of properties falling out of closing as they were last year, this year 35% of properties are falling out of closing, mainly during the inspection period. And he attributed this to a little bit of buyer's remorse and maybe this approaching bubble that could be happening where a situation is created where it's a multi-bid situation, and maybe the real estate agent is driving that a little bit too hard. And now you have a buyer putting an offer in, and then they get accepted. But yet when they go back in and look at the property during the inspection period, they say, why am I paying this much money for this property? That's a prevailing, overarching sort of thing that's happening today.
Yeah, because it's hard to really look at the property when you're in there with 30 other people. So if you're going into an open house situation, which a lot of these are turning to, we're open at 2 o'clock, to 4 o'clock. Private showings can be after, but you're going to have multiple showings at the same time. Highest and best is at 7. Well, all of this is on the first day of market. How are you really getting to look around when there's 10 people in that room, so you're not getting to see what you need to see? So you see people bidding on the properties, and you see them bidding over, but then you see it falling out during the inspection period because they're actually getting to spend the time by themselves in the house and seeing things that they didn't see before that will cost money.
Right. And this is something you're seeing in the single-family housing market right now because
mainly, yes.
Because there's so little inventory on the market that which is on the market tends to get multiple bids. If it's priced right, it gets multiple bids, and it happens pretty quickly.
Right. And as a real estate agent, going back to the fiduciary responsibility, if I'm an agent representing a seller and I'm instituting highest and best on day one and it doesn't materialize, well, I've not done my seller a service. We've seen this dynamic happen over and over on multiple deals where, well, we're calling for highest and best. Well, you don't have multiple offers and you don't have a highest and best scenario. So you really, you defrayed me from even going to the property and wasting my time because you've created this atmosphere of pressure where I would have brought my client into this situation if I thought it was safe. So I'm representing a buyer. I don't want to put him in that high pressure situation.
Yeah.
So not all the time. There's a time and a place for everything. So you just have to you need to think this through. Don't become so susceptible. If you're an agent, don't become so susceptible to the market that you become disillusioned in your process because of what's happening in the market. You've got to understand what's happening in the market, but you don't need to become a victim to it or become susceptible to it. And sometimes that hard conversation with your client as a buyer's agent is, maybe you need to rent for another year. Will this really work for you long term? If you buy at this price, will it really work for you if the market comes down 5%? Will it really work for you? That conversation, at least the conversation has to be had. And if they say, yep, it will really work for me, then okay, great, let's buy it.
Yeah.
Well, they get excited about it. I mean, we had a buyer yesterday. They're very excited about it, but you have to bring them back to reality. Your job is to take them off the emotional and bring them back to reality. This is an amazing home. It's an amazing location, and it's priced right. They're all right. However, we know that, and you're going to have to put this roof on. It's going to cost X. Looking at your budget, can you afford this? Well, I'm not sure. I have to look at it again. Okay, then we're not putting an offer in until you go look at your budget because we're not going to waste your time, our time, or this listing agent's time because you could possibly lose this house once this roof needs to be put on December, before December. So you have to, look out for your client and, sometimes bring them back to reality to say, it is a great house, but it's not working with your budget with where the banker says you need to be. Or do you have an account set aside for this deferred maintenance going into this home? Do you have that money set aside or do you have the resource to get that when you have to do this? So you're not stuck at a house that you've bought at the height of the market and you can't sell or get out of, so you lose.
Yeah, so bring your retail buyer, your retail customer, treat your retail customer just like you treat your investor. Hey, let's set up a capital repair account. Let's figure out what it's going to take to replace that water heater in 3 years and make sure that you've got that in the bank. So just those observations and admonition, I guess, to the buyers saying, don't just think this is going to be, you're going to walk into this dream home and nothing's going to happen here. You've got to come with a realistic approach to buying a piece of real estate, whether you're an investor or a retail buyer.
Yeah, and have that cushion, make sure you have that cushion to replace the roof or whatever might need to be done. Right. But do you think that we are at the top of the market or is the pricing being driven by interest rates, which people believe are going to go up? And is it possible that this is the new normal as far as price and value of these properties and the rents that we're getting?
I think what we're seeing today at the buyer level is a savvier retail buyer because they're going back 5 years and remembering what happened, and they had a friend who lost everything. So everybody knows somebody that lost, or maybe they lost. So they're savvier. In regard to, the interest rates, sure, they're always factoring. They're always going to factor in, and they're going to drive price. But what's interesting is, you look at, let's say, a 4% interest rate, and then you've got, as a married couple, they're evaluating at the tax level their $12,000 threshold that they got to meet. Now, can they meet? Is there any income tax benefit based on low interest rates and property taxes to get me over that $12,000 threshold? So is there any real advantage for me for buying today? So we see buyers evaluating that scenario, depending on their tax situation as buyers. So yes, that interest rates are always going to be a proponent in the buying process, and are these new prices the new normal? I think geographically, in some cases, yes. I think in certain areas geographically, those prices are going to come up. In the improving gentrifying neighborhoods, you're going to see those come up and stay up. In general, I think the landscape has lifted, and just in general, and then it becomes more pointed as you get into certain geographies where, yes, you are at a bubble. Maybe not here in West Michigan yet, but certainly in metros such as Denver or San Francisco, Los Angeles. You're in a bubble. So you're not going to be able to purchase.
In the major cities,
yes,
where you're seeing prices going through the roof.
Yeah, I think there's still room in West Michigan. I think there is. I think Grand Rapids is coming into its own. I keep telling everybody that Grand Rapids is going to become Indianapolis at that level of population and complexity. I think there's room to grow here in good old Grand Rapids. I think we're maturing as a city, and I think population will continue to increase. I think the economy will continue to grow here as long as you have the overseers, I guess, of our city and county being proponents of that. So there's a lot of latitude, I think, here. So you can feel good about buying a piece of property, making the improvements and selling it at a higher price point. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm an advocate of that. I think we need to grow here. I think we need to push those values forward in Grand Rapids.
Right.
I think the city's wanting us to grow too. I mean, you've got the right place out there. You got Downtown Inc. out there. And if you ever look at their plan for the city and what they're working on, it's amazing. The walkway along the river, they're really doing a lot of great things in this area.
Yeah, I've lived here for 10 years in Grand Rapids, and there's been a concerted effort to really push this city forward, mm-hmm, and make it a place where everybody wants to live. And when you compare the affordability of Grand Rapids to San Francisco or LA or New York, well, I mean, there's no contest. You can afford a lot more, sure, here in Grand Rapids. So even as prices are going up, we're still well below what you pay in a major city.
Sure.
And I don't think we're going to still, we have a lack of affordable housing right now, but we still have it, and we have people building it. And I think that's what makes Grand Rapids special, is that if you talk to somebody from Downtown Inc. or the right place, they're making sure that happens, and they're making sure that's in their plan, So they're not just looking at, we want all rents, or if they're trying to hit a certain level. They're making sure that every demographic, each person's taken care of.
Yeah, they're taking a very balanced approach.
Yeah, mm-hmm. When I went to the last meeting, I was really impressed with they're saying we're going to make sure we have, this percent for the, this income level. They wanted to make sure that every income level was basically covered and could have have housing. Mm-hmm. So it was nice to see that.
Yeah, so in one sense, it's good to push those boundaries of value. Let's get those housing prices up a little bit. Let's get those rents pushed up. Let's not, like Tina said, just put all the weight on upper end rents. Let's temper that with, yes, let's keep some affordable rent. But Grand Rapids, the vision is rising, and it's good to go ahead and get those rents of $2,000 for a rental unit. It's happening it's happening in Detroit. Why can't it happen here in Grand Rapids? So everybody's got to have their place. Everybody's situation is different. So if I'm a professional and I'm working in the financial industry downtown Grand Rapids, and I want this level of amenities, then that's what I want, and I'm willing to pay for it. Okay, so let's service that. And I think for a long time that component was missing from Grand Rapids. It was just a little too conservative, but now I think that lid is lifting up a little bit, and we're seeing more diversity funnel into the city. And those types of mindsets being opened up.
Well, as we wrap up here, I want to go back to a bit of our conversation and about investors looking at buying the single family or any sort of property, and looking at the interest rate that they can get right now. If you're buying residential, you can lock it in for 30 years. 30-year amortization. That's a pretty compelling thing, because no matter, even if we're at the top of the market and there's a bubble, in 30 years you can pretty much be guaranteed the property's going to be worth well more than what you're paying for it today. But there's another calculation that you've brought up in the past in personal conversation, Wes, and that has to do with just the return on investment you get from the principal pay down that occurs when you own rental property.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes, principal, amortization, buy down, and it really doesn't matter. All other factors being disqualified, meaning the interest rate, depreciation, your tax situation. All of those could be moved aside. And if you just look empirically at, let's say, $100,000 house at 20% down, so you're investing $20,000 into a $100,000 piece of property. Over the course of the full amortization period, you're averaging, in a vacuum, with all other factors set aside, fundamentally, at the fundamental level, you're earning 13% on your money, on your 20% down or your $20,000. So inherently, real estate is this, because of leverage, becomes this type of investment that a lot of other vehicles do not offer.
Well, where is that 13% return coming from? Is it coming from the principal pay down that your tenant is paying from the rent every month?
It's coming from the principal buy down.
The principal buy down. So explain that in a little bit more detail.
So every time you make a payment, every time a payment is made to a bank, it's going to carry with it a principal portion and an interest portion. And at the beginning of a loan, it's disproportionate. The interest is overbearing and the principal is the lesser position. But over time, that principal component takes over. Right around year 15, you're starting to pay more principal.
You're paying more of the principal down than
yes.
you are paying interest.
Right. And the reason why this is working is because somebody else, or that payment is covering the cost of interest and bringing that principal back to you. But you're using the bank's money. You're not using the only money that you have invested is the $20,000 or the 20% down.
And you've invested $80,000 of the bank's money.
Yeah, so you're using the bank's $80,000, and that is coming back to you. They're doing you a favor there. They're giving you back.
So as you pay down that
the
principal,
value.
and as you pay down that principal, which is the 80,000, as you pay that down over the lifetime of the loan, whether it be 20 years, 30 years, what have you, you can put a return on investment number
Yes.
on that principal pay
Yes,
down.
you can attach a metric to that. So, and this is, a perfect, like I say, it's in a vacuum, meaning it's not a perfect situation. It's just a fundamental dynamic that is happening under the radar that you're maybe not even aware of. It's just happening for you.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the great benefits of owning real estate is you're not just getting cash flow. You're also paying down principal, and that whether you see it or not, which you don't see it until you sell the property or pay off the loan, that principal pay down has great value.
Definitely. The ability to use other people's money, i.e. the banks, and then ultimately the tenant is also, you're using that tenant's, as an investor, you're using that person's capital. So they're actually paying, so it's a little bit of a double whammy. Then this is where cash flow comes in and all these other metrics. But so you're using bank capital and you're using a tenant's capital. And, when you mix those two, then it gets even, those proportions get even greater.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of, as well as you're not actually paying down that principal, your tenant is.
Yes.
So that's a nice thing. So if someone is listening and they want to work with you, they have a property they want managed, or they want your services as a realtor, how would they get a hold of you?
They could call the office. We could give a phone number.
I can put the phone number in the show notes if you want, but do you have a website that...
Yep, there's a website, and you could add that to the show notes as well. They could click into that. There's a form there they could fill out, or there's a phone number they could call.
Okay, what is that, citywide.com?
It's an acronym for the company. It's CWRESMI.com. Again, CWRESMI.com, Citywide Real Estate Services Michigan.com.
Okay, great. Well, Tina, Wes, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I think we've learned a lot about you and your business, and it's really been a pleasure.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.